Hello, everyone. I want to thank you all so much for joining us. This is Left Bank Books presents the launch event for queer St. Louis roller derby player and Washington University MFA alum, Gabe Montesanti. Here to discuss her debut memoir, Race for Impact. When you support Left Bank Books, your money goes directly into the local economy. It helps us keep our bookstore open, and it helps keep your streets paved, your libraries funded, your parks free, and so many other things that make St. Louis a better place. So I would like to thank all of you for supporting us. We also want to welcome our virtual audience tonight. Hello, virtual audience. Signed and personalized copies are available on our website, left-bank.com. And I am Shane Mullen. I'm the events coordinator for Left Bank Books. I think I traveled the furthest to get here today. My day started in Wisconsin. So I am so thrilled to be here with you, and I am so happy to see all these faces. Yes. I help produce all of our events here in St. Louis with a fantastic team, including Amanda and Danielle. We are so happy to be doing more in-person events. Be sure to check out our event calendar on our website, left-bank.com, or of all of our programming for readers of all ages. Of note, two events that I am super excited about. One that isn't even on our calendar, so you are the first people in the public to know. But we will be hosting Dr. Eva Max Kendi at the Grandel down the street. Very exciting. It's on June 21st for a ticketed event, which will be featuring a guest appearance by local illustrator Ivani Bea. Tomorrow will be announcing the National Book Award-winning author Jason Mott for his paperback tour for the book that won him the National Book Award, Hell of a Book, and it is phenomenal. I'm thrilled that he's coming back to St. Louis and that he's finally getting the recognition he deserves. So if you don't know who he is, he's not the Cardinals player. He is. And now, about tonight's book, a powerful and redemptive story of how the dazzling world of roller derby helped one young woman transform her fear and self-doubt into a gutsy, big-hearted, adventurous living. Gabe WAMBACH, the Olympian activist and author of the #1 New York Times bestseller Wolfpack, says, "A universal story of healing and triumph made all the more beautiful, wild, and free by Gabe's fierce love for roller derby and her team, who become her family." And I will skip a lot of this because Gabe is going to inform you of it herself. But this is told with unflinching honesty and a giant dose of wonder. Race for Impact is a tender, inspiring memoir about the everyday heroism of pursuing a life less ordinary and the deeply human need to be at peace with who you are. Gabe Montesanti is a queer Midwestern roller derby player. She earned her MFA in creative nonfiction from Washington University in St. Louis. Her piece, The Worldwide Roller Derby Convention, was recognized as a notable essay in the Best American Essays. And we are so happy that this is a true statement again. She lives in St. Louis with her wife. And now another round of applause as Gabe comes out on the stage.
I'm so grateful you're all here. I'm just overwhelmed by the love and support I've been shown this week and tonight and throughout the publication process of writing Race for Impact. I also want to thank from the bottom of my heart all of you for coming out or tuning in. Thank you, Left Bank Books, for hosting this event and for Zach Performing Arts Center for providing a venue. Thank you to those of you who traveled to get here, including my in-laws from Wisconsin. My friends from high school from Michigan, and my teaching mentor from Texas. So, and thank you to those of you who are watching at home. Thank you especially to all those who are from St. Louis and the surrounding areas who are part of my story, either explicitly or implicitly. My editor, Katie Nishimoto, and my team at the Dial Press were just dreamy to work with. I'm just so grateful. And thank you especially to my wife, Kelly, who's had a front row seat, literally, in the entire process. Yeah, it's such an honor to be able to launch this book into the world in the city that it's set. So I first want to warn you that this will not be a traditional reading, because nothing I do is traditional. Instead of reading one long section, I'm going to read 3 smaller sections to give you kind of a sampler of the memoir, and I'll be talking a little bit in between. I will be also partaking in some light cursing, which you might have heard on NPR this week. Yeah, I saw one of my advanced readers posted a trigger warning about that on Instagram, cursing, along with several other things like gore and vomit. So I don't think we'll get to the vomit in this event, but consider yourself warned. So before I launch into the first excerpts, I just want to give you a little context. Make some noise if you've been to the South City St. Louis Stadium before. The St. Louis Stadium, which is where our tribe roller derby practices, is a very special place. The first time I visited for roller derby recruit night, I thought it would be just like any other rink. Glow-in-the-dark carpet, tan rented roller skates, little orange cubbies that you put your key in your bra while you're skating. But it's not that. And, if you've never been there, just let me be the first to tell you, it's a very special place. To give you a better idea of the kind of place we're dealing with, I pulled some really amazing reviews from Google, which I think a better job characterizing the stadium than I ever could. So the first comes from Nisse Mitchell, 2 stars. This will be in a picture. The floor was old and the wood pieces were coming up. The ceiling was falling in. We had to use our phones on a Bluetooth speaker to connect to music. I had fun at the party, which is why I gave it 2 stars, but the facility was absolutely horrible. Don't go there on your own. Our next review comes from Brianna Miller, 1 star. The place was really dirty. It smelled really bad. The floor was cracked up. The speaker barely worked. In my opinion, y'all don't even deserve 1 star. Y'all deserve 0 stars. I'd rather skate outside than ever go back here. Lucas Higgins gave it 2 stars. We got a good deal on the skate rental, but the employee had his shirt off. Not exactly what I would call family friendly. Angela gave it 1 star. This place is disgusting. It hasn't been updated in at least 20 years. The staff was rude. One of the kids was injured, and the staff basically ignored it, even though it looked like the child's arm was broken. This is the last one. This is my favorite from Australia. 1 star. Horrible. The space is questionable. The nacho cheese is served out of a fucking crock pot. So now you all have a better idea of what the stadium is like. I'll launch into the first few pages of the book.
Request from award-winning Diane Seuss. Can you speak more into the microphone?
Yes, I will speak more into the microphone, Diane. Is that better?
I think so.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Leave it to Diane. Okay, so this is from the chapter called Recruit Night. From the outside, the St. Louis Stadium seems just as abandoned as the surrounding buildings. The strip looked like a stage set, all peeling paint and muted colors. There was a for-lease sign hanging crookedly in the window of Pleb Clothing and Shoe Company. Both the neighboring storefronts were boarded up. The Bush beer sign hanging from an empty bar was coated in rust and cobwebs. Beside Tucker's Bar and Grill, two old men wearing overalls and yellow gloves were rooting for a dumpster. Kelly and I surveyed the roller ring from our old Corolla. We had never been to South City before and had no idea what to expect. The exterior, a flat white facade with dull red accents, held no indication we had come to the right place. I'm not sure what I was expecting, something that looked more like the roller rings of my childhood, perhaps. Kid-friendly graphics painted in bright colors, a tan tall roller skate with wings displayed on the roof. A sign would have helped me feel less intimidated. Roller derby recruit night, or future skaters enter here. Even home of our tribal roller derby would have put me at ease. Instead, there was only happy birthday, Julia, 7. Missing letters, all rested upside down at the bottom of the plastic sugar. Are you nervous? Kelly asked. Because I'm not even interested in roller derby and I'm nervous for you. Nah, I lied. Then I said we should probably go in, but neither of us made a move. When I was 15, my dad took me and my sister Cam on a tour of all the places he and my mother used to frequent in the early days of their relationship. We were in Denver, visiting my dad's parents. Perhaps the absence of my mother, who had stayed home in Michigan, allowed us to experience a rare collective feeling of missing or even romanticizing her presence. First, we drove past the Grease Monkey, where my parents had first met. Mom came in for an oil change, and Dad was her mechanic. We don't know how exactly it happened after that, but my sister and I love to speculate about the initial attraction. Was it her dark eyes, his crooked smile? It was hard to imagine a time when they might have been passionate with each other. Although they stayed married, the sole affection we saw between them was a quick kiss in church before communion. The only detail I know for certain about that time is that my dad couldn't drive my mom on dates because his license had been revoked for drag racing. That I actually found out with a DUI. This is a particularly juicy source of intel, his youthful recklessness, his passion. I was proud of him, in a twisted kind of way, for getting into trouble, since it was so uncharacteristic of the quiet, pious man I knew him to be. When we pulled up to the house they lived in when I was born, we didn't get out of the car. I wondered if I'd have an emotional connection to the house, but when I looked at it, I felt nothing at all. The roof was flat, two unremarkable streets. That's it? Cam asked. Even at 10, she was hard to impress. Dad tapped on the steering wheel absent-mindedly. I could tell he was toying with the idea of knocking on the door and asking the current occupants if we could take a look around. It'd be nice to show you your old room, he said. There was a pause. The car was still running. I understood my dad's apprehension. If we knocked, we might be able to go in, but we'd also face the possibility of rejection. Whoever opened the door would have all the power. My dad pushed open the glove compartment, removed a yellow cloth, and began wiping down the old dashboard, which he always did when he was nervous. Maybe the thought of being inside our old home was frightening to him, I remember thinking. What if it looked completely different? What if it looked the same and flooded him with memories of a time when our family hadn't yet done so much damage to each other? Are we going in or what? Cam asked. I cringed, wishing she had let my dad linger in the possibility a bit longer. Her question seemed to snap him out of his reverie. We sat for a moment longer, then drove off. We never spoke about it again. Let's go, I told Kelly, and got out of the car. The walk up to the stadium was flanked by a black chain link fence blocking off a neighboring bus station. In places, the chain had broken away from the poles, anchoring it to the ground, and it had twisted up toward the sky. Several men in navy blue jumpsuits on the other side of the fence were smoking cigarettes and laughing. The air was thick and wet inside the stadium. We had to push through a cloud of pot smoke to fully enter. The stink of weed tangled with that body odor. On the track were purple tent benches arranged campfire style around a cooler of beer. About a dozen people, who I presume to be other recruits, were already perched there chatting. They ran the gamut in terms of age and appearance. I felt curious about what had brought everyone here. Stepping onto the truck to join them was daunting. The surface was white, and for a brief instant I mistook it for ice. In some places, the wood had been stripped. In others, the track was warped and uneven. Small beams of light were shining onto the stadium floor, reminding me of mornings in my childhood parish where the crucifix was perfectly illuminated. But unlike at church, where big windows were the source of the light flooding the stadium was the result of holes in the roof. The ceiling was skeletal, barn-like, with crisscrossing wooden beams. Buckets, half filled with rainwater, dangled from the rafters, and a disco ball hung in the center. Yeah. On the sideline, an elderly woman was vacuuming. Her hair was long and stringy, her body shaped like a question mark. After a few seconds of observation, I realized she was running the vacuum over the same strip of carpet again and again. She must have been gripping tightly because her knuckles were white. The hand not occupied with vacuuming was clenching a fistful of her baggy t-shirt as if to wring it dry. "That's slightly eerie," I whispered to Kelly. She nodded emphatically. We took our seat on the purple benches beside another recruit, a butch woman who introduced herself as Alice. She noticed staring at the vacuuming lady and said, "This place is fucking crazy, isn't it?" Encouraged by our nodding, Alice leaned closer so the other recruits couldn't hear. "I used to come skate here as a kid. Been here a lot over the years. I've sometimes wondered if it's a drug den. My guess is meth." "Are you fucking serious?" I said. "How do you know?" Kelly asked. As usual, she wanted facts. Alice simply gestured to the woman who was done vacuuming her swatch of carpet and had moved on to wiping down the Coke machines and old arcade games. She wiped the surface of the pinball machine, but didn't touch the handles. The sea of stuffed animals and rubber balls underneath the dangling metal claw was covered with a fine layer of dust, but the woman either didn't notice or didn't care. She had a way of walking that looked more like hovering. She disappeared and reappeared with such regularity, I became convinced she could float through the walls. We continued watching the woman for a few minutes as the other recruits trickled in. Alice stuck her arm into the cooler of beer and offered one to me and Kelly. "You all need to drink more shitty beer," an approaching woman shouted. "And I'm the one in charge, so you have to do what I say." She's here tonight. This woman was breathtaking. She had a tuft of blue hair and was wearing an exorbitant amount of makeup. Her eyelids were coated in gold glitter, and each eye was framed by a perfect ring. Her lips matched her hair and the blush of her cheeks. On her left arm was a large, unfinished tattoo of a wolf woman. Her right leg bore a hand-sized heart pierced by a dagger and the words, "Keep rolling." Though I loved all her ink, what I admired most about this woman was her clothing. She had hacked her jersey into a crop top and wore cheetah print hot pants that more closely resembled underwear than shorts. My mother, who surely would have tried to recruit this woman to her Weight Watchers class, always emphasized that women bigger than a size 6 should cover up, hide themselves, and work hard to get thin. But this woman clearly didn't subscribe to that philosophy. I recognized the name on the back of the woman's jersey, Soup Beans. We had traded emails. I'd asked questions about recruit night and offered more information than was probably necessary about my background. Seeing Soup Beans in person made me feel embarrassed and shy about everything I had disclosed. I was a competitive swimmer from 4th grade through college, and I really just missed being a part of a team. She had responded that roller derby could probably fill that hole. "Listen up, sweet baby ankles," Soup Bean said, clapping her hands. "Tonight, we'll low-key get to know each other and casually ask some questions while we watch derby. The main purpose is for you to experience the action. Who here has seen roller derby live before?" A smattering of hands went up, including mine. I had gone with a friend in college to see the Kalamazoo Derby Darlings. We had no idea what we were watching. To us, it just looked like a street brawl. Still, I was captivated. I couldn't imagine coming to recruit night if I had never seen a live bout before. Kelly's hands was one of the ones that stayed down, but I made an exception for her since she didn't want to play and was only here to support me. It was surprising, though, that I had experienced something she hadn't. Kelly was 4 years older than me and had witnessed a lot in her 26 years. Drag shows at La Cage in downtown Milwaukee, the New York Philharmonic at Carnegie Hall, bullfighting in Madrid. I felt proud that I had seen one small part of the world she hadn't. Soup Beans reached into a rainbow tote bag draped over her shoulder. It said, "Be a slut, do whatever you want." Grinning, I poked Kelly in the ribs to draw her attention to the bag. From the tote, Soup Beans removed a stack of bumper stickers and fanned them out before all the new recruits. "Here," she said, "take one. We need to get rid of these." Kelly and I examined our stickers. It was just the arch rival logo I had seen online, the gateway arch with Harley-Davidson-like wings and a single wheel underneath. "We're rebranding," Soup Beans said. "We're not arch rival roller girls anymore. We're arch rival roller derby. More inclusive, for the skaters who aren't boys or girls." Several people on the bench next to me started clapping, and Soup Beans took a small bow. Kelly whispered into my ear, "Toto, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore." And she was right. I had never been part of an organization that acknowledged or prioritized LGBTQ rights. It made me want to plaster my car with arch rival bumper stickers. Soup Beans directed our attention to the track, where a horde of skaters were just starting warm-ups. "As I mentioned, we'll be watching some scrimmages tonight," Soup Beans said. "Love me some scram. Pay attention to what they're doing out there while I get some more benches." There were close to 50 skaters on the track. Some swung their arms in circles, others balanced on one skate and shook out their leg. One was wearing anatomical leggings that made her look like a cadaver from the waist down. All of the wheels made the floor vibrate, and their stopping caused long, screeching noises like hawks. To Kelly's delight, lots of skaters had their names on the sides of their helmets. Every time she found one particularly amusing, she would nudge me and discreetly point. "Her name is Snotface," she whispered. "Oh my God, Janheuser-Busch." Although I felt incredibly awkward about meeting all these new people, and unsure if I should make small talk with the other recruits during warm-up, I was glad Kelly seemed to be having a good time. Her stack of crosswords, a permanent artifact in her purse, sat untouched in her lap. On the way to the stadium, she told me that she had filled out 10 new job applications that day, and this was her reward. Even though we both identified as introverts, I could tell the social isolation of job searching was getting to Kelly. Her only interaction with people besides me was her Saturday night volunteer ushering gig at the Fox Theater, which she had found soon after we moved to St. Louis 4 months earlier at the end of May. She didn't even care that she was the youngest usher by nearly 40 years. Occasionally, someone would break away from the track and barrel over to where we were sitting. The skaters we met this way kept their introductions brief. "Ginger assassin. I play for the M80s, one said, extending her knuckles for a fist bump. A woman with a long blue braid dropped to her knees, plastic pads clapping like hooves on the wood, and slid to a stop in front of me. "Rock lobster. Smash Shanice's captain. Happy you're here." There was something military in the way she spoke. Clips, not in full sentences, anything non-essential boiled away. But there was an unmistakable warmth in her eyes and the way she smiled, a mouth guard blocking all her teeth like an orange slice. Soup Beans eventually shooed the skaters away and asked for our attention. "While they're warming up, I want to hear from you," she said. "Just your name, pronouns, and how you found out about roller derby." The first woman to introduce herself, Birdsong, was a transfer. She was blonde and tattooed and looked to be in her mid-20s. "I just moved home from South America, and I'm looking forward to learning the rules in English," she explained. "My league in Chile was pretty lax. We just kind of hit however we wanted." I began to worry that I would be the only true beginner, but the woman who went next said she hadn't skated in nearly 30 years. She'd seen a van on the highway with information about recruit night painted on the windows. Soup Beans clapped and began jumping up and down. She turned and called to one of the skaters warming up, Dad, our windows worked. She pointed a perfectly manicured nail back at the recruit. This dreamboat is here because she saw our windows. 2 other recruits confirmed that they too had seen the van on the freeway, which only heightened Soup Beans' excitement. She didn't fully calm down until Alice stated that the reason she had come to roller derby recruit night was the movie Whip It. I need you all to know that modern roller derby is nothing like Whip It, Soup Beans said. Well, it's a little bit like Whip It, you know? I mean, I drank a million years ago because I wanted to drink and wear hot pants, but the rules are nothing like in that movie. You can't just punch a bitch in the face anymore. Alice was visibly disappointed. But it's still full contact, right? She said. Like, what if I punch a bitch by accident? Soup Beans pursed her lips. Look, if any of you are here because you want to punch somebody in the face, leave now. She paused dramatically to see if anyone would get up, and I averted my eyes. Good, Soup Beans said, finally. And besides, in the first 6 months, none of you will be able to control your bodies enough to throw punches anyway. You're all going to be flappy-armed loose cannons. Nobody is going to want to skate within arm's reach of you. None of the remaining 6 recruits mentioned Whip It, but the woman sitting on the track below Alice said she had come because she had the perfect roller derby name, which also irritated Soup Beans. So, like, I'm a cosmetologist, right? She said, smacking her bubble gum. And suddenly it just came to me. Blades of Glory. Wouldn't that be like the best roller derby name ever? Blades for short. Do you get it? Because I'm a hairdresser. Some of the other recruits laughed, but when Blades wasn't looking, I saw Soup Beans roll her eyes, fluttering her eyelids for dramatic effect. Kelly didn't even offer her name when it was her turn. I'm just here for moral support, she said, nodding at me. I don't want to skate or anything. Then all eyes were on me. I felt suddenly nauseous, unsure how much information to give. I said my name and repeated what I had written in my email exchange with Soup Beans. It seemed important to justify my presence with my decade-long sports history, even though I knew the skill set I developed as a competitive swimmer probably wouldn't translate at all to this game. What I didn't say was that I couldn't stand to look at the water anymore, not after my disastrous last college season. That I'd only played individual sports, and I was worried I wouldn't know how to fit into a team. That I needed a physical activity I wouldn't turn into a weight loss regimen. What I didn't say was that I had just moved to St. Louis and I was desperately lonely for community, queer friendship, and something fun that felt as far away from my hometown as possible. And how did you find out about roller derby? Soup Beans asked, eyebrows raised. The truth was, a derby player had approached me shortly after I had left home in a hurry, hoping Kelly would let me stay. Kelly was studying math at Bowling Green State University, and I arrived one day with everything I owned. How long will you stay here? Kelly had asked. I knew she wasn't being rude. She was a pragmatist, always blunt in assessments and questioning. I told her I didn't know, but I knew that I would not be moving back home. While Kelly was at class, I'd go to the coffee shop around the corner, and I was in line one morning when a woman who was visibly queer, something I was not yet used to seeing and which gave me a jolt of admiration and envy, struck up a conversation with me. It turned out she was on the Glass City Rollers, a roller league based in Toledo. She said I looked like the kind of gal who could be a big threat on the track, and I wish I knew what it was about me that gave her that impression. Still, our encounter had the effect of making me immediately enamored with the sport and those who played it. That was way too much, I knew, to convey to a group of strangers. The long pause I had taken was already bloated and uncomfortable. I felt a familiar nervous tingling in my stomach. Was I being questioned more than the others? Could they sense how badly I wanted this recruit night to go well? Was this just a friendly way of getting to know me? I don't really know how I found derby, I lied. Kelly and I just moved to St. Louis. I guess I've been thinking about joining a team for a while. Did you move here for work? Alice asked. Graduate school, I said shyly. I'm in the writing program at Washington University. I thought about adding that my undergrad degree was in math and art, but it seemed unnecessary and slightly pompous. They didn't need to know that I chose math only because I thought a STEM major was a guaranteed career. Plus, Kelly worked in the math center, an easy way to get close to her while we were still building a relationship. Last minute. Art was where I really excelled. I made huge pieces with pressed flowers and leaves, cyanotypes, and old-fashioned medium-format Holga prints. Once I even ditched my canvas and painted Kelly's body instead. Supians pointed to an older woman, maybe 50, who was skating by herself on the side of the track. On the back of her helmet, purple stickers spelled out her name, Nanny McWee. Nanny is a professor, Supian said. I forget where she teaches. I know she's fluent in at least one other language. She has a fucking PhD. You should go ask her about it and talk about smart people shit. I smiled weakly and Kelly reached for my hand. I was always uncomfortable with labels associated with my education. One of my mother's greatest achievements had been the day she called into an NPR segment on surviving in America without a college education. I was too young to remember it, but she spoke of it often, and I always felt a sense of pride on her and my dad's behalf. After I graduated from college, my mother once approached me while I was trying to grind coffee beans for my dad and reprimanded me for not knowing how to use the machine. You are college educated now, she said. There's no reason you shouldn't know how to do this. In her mind, college inevitably led to wealth, which she resented in any form. She once rearranged the nativity scene I had set up at Christmas time, shifting the three kings out of the barn with Mary and Jesus to make room for the livestock. These rich men don't deserve a front row seat, she said. My diploma and the status it represented made me feel like one of those tiny kings looking in on a family in which I'd never really belonged. That's the first excerpt. So that's not the whole first chapter, but you get the idea. The next excerpt I'm going to read is quite a bit shorter, and it comes from the middle of the book, in a chapter called The Enemy, which is about playing in my first local game with the Stunt Doubles. All you need to know is that Taryn is my roller derby mom, which is kind of a term we use in roller derby for a close mentor or a mom-like figure. She's sitting in the front row. Shout out to Taryn. We were paired together for a mentorship program, and we had grown really close by this point. So I think everything else is pretty self-explanatory. The night before my first game, I washed all my pads and doused them in disinfectant. I picked up my jersey, which had been shipped directly to Supians, and ironed out the bandana the Stunts had given me at draft night. In the morning, I took a long shower. I folded at the waist and felt the rush of blood to my head, grabbed onto my ankles to target the tightness in my legs. When I was a competitive swimmer, I used to bend over before races to visualize myself winning. There was something about being upside down, something about the way I could hear my heart thudding. Now I bent not to imagine victory, but as a sort of meditation. When I stood back up, I felt bigger than I had before, a feeling that I associated with power. I toweled off and got dressed. My teammates had long ago convinced me to do away with underwear, too many unnecessary lines and layers. They also tipped me off to wearing 2 sports bras to make sure nothing jiggles. I picked a pair of sparkly red shorts from Kelly's dresser. She used to wear them, I remembered, when we were weightlifting partners in college. Everyone had made fun of her then for these bizarre weight room get-ups. her tendency to jump right into conversations with no introductions or greetings, her plates full of brown and tan foods in the cafeteria, smothered all in ranch dressing. I loved all of these things about Kelly when I first met her. She seemed immune to caring how she was perceived. When Kelly campaigned for swim team captain, I was her biggest advocate, systematically convincing all the other lowly freshmen that despite her oddities, Kelly had our best interests at heart. As I pulled the shorts over my freshly shaved legs, I hoped to channel Kelly's courage and determination. Next, I slathered my lids with sparkles. I lined my eyes with acrylic paints, black shadow and winged tips. I was going for Amy Winehouse, but I looked more like Cleopatra. When Kelly saw me, her mouth fell open. Damn! She said, stretching the word out like a piece of gum. You look intimidating as fuck. Well, good, I said. It makes up for the lack of knowledge. Because all the movies were assigned to the NBOUT committee, Terrence committee, whose responsibility it was to set up and tear down for games, Kelly had arranged to catch a ride with Clara so that I could get to the venue early. Alone in my car, my fear finally caught up to me. It was horribly indiscriminate. I had no concrete words, nothing that could have been addressed by any practical problem solving, just a shape-shifting mass of nerves festering somewhere between my chest and my stomach. On the seat beside me was a present from Kelly's dad, the best of Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. He said, thank you. He said that every roller derby player should blast Joan on the way to their games. He had been greatly enthusiastic when Kelly told him about my new sport. I popped the CD in, opened up the windows, even though I was on the freeway. I cranked Joan Jett all the way up and let my hair whip around my head. In my derby uniform, sparkly red shorts, and aviator sunglasses, I felt like I was meeting this version of myself for the first time. The rink at Queenie Park in Baldwin, where Arch plays games, is unlike the St. Louis Stadium in every way imaginable. It was situated in the middle of the park with dozens of running and biking trails, playgrounds, and small creeks. My first thought upon seeing it was that I wish we could practice here all the time, but I knew it wasn't feasible in terms of expense or how far outside the city boundaries it was located. As I drove the winding roads, I encountered more than one person I recognized hammering "roller derby this way" signs into the cold ground. I followed the arrows back to the entrance. The inside was even more impressive. It had bleacher seating for 1,800 people and additional trackside options. The track was clean. There was a concession stand that sold soft pretzels and hot dogs. No one permanently resided in the locker room. When I walked in, the gatekeepers, St. Louis's men's roller derby team, had already begun laying the track, and Taryn was standing on a chair hanging a sign that said, "Bathrooms downstairs." "You have orange hair now," I said. "It looks so pretty." She hopped down from her chair and hugged me. "Thanks. I worried that it would clash with my red Emmys jersey, but I'll be wearing a helmet, so who cares?" She handed me a card and a gift, and I headed off to the locker room where my teammates were in various stages of preparation. Violet sat in a corner listening to music with her eyes closed. Aggie Wartooth was smell testing her jersey, which she had forgotten to wash after the last game. Cruella and Loki Doki were doing their makeup. Mr. McWheely always photographs me making faces like I'm sucking a dick, staring to the left. And they always pick those pictures for the flyers. "Hey, did y'all hear we're gonna have our own billboard? Should help with attendance this season." "I didn't hear that," Cruella replied. "That's amazing. I hope I'm not making a duck face on our billboard." "Why is it that in every picture I'm either puckering my lips or it looks like I'm pooping out a jammer?" Cruella's comment got a few chuckles, but Loki didn't really seem to hear. "Good news," she announced to the entire locker room. "I haven't seen my number, 14, all week. Spark, I know you're new, but that means we're gonna win. If I see my number outside a derby, it's bad luck." I smiled in her direction, not really sure what to make of her superstition, and opened Taryn's card. Dear Spark, let me just say I am so effing proud of you. You worked your ass off and have come so far so quickly. Tonight is your first bout. Have fun. It's gonna be scary as shit. But whatever happens, just have fun. Laugh, smile, smack the ass of your teammates. I love that our paths cross and how we are stuck to each other for life. I cannot wait to sit in the stands one day, watching you annihilate the competition and say, yep, that's my derby kid. Love your face to pieces. I know you'll be awesome tonight. Always, Karen. Rick Taylor led the off-speeds warm-up, an activity for which I was wholly unprepared. We had only ever warmed up on skates before practice and scrimmages. I had come to Queenie Park wearing snow boots. Rick apologized for failing to mention it and suggested I just wear my socks. Back in the locker room, we secured our knee pads and elbow pads. We double knotted our skates. We put on our helmets onto which we had painted stars and stripes like Evel Knievel's, but let the buckles dangle until it was time to stand up. Our captain, Aggie Wartooth, passed around permanent markers, and Flux told me to hold still while she wrote my numbers on my arms. One of the stunts coaches, Grave Danger, was very pregnant. Fuck, does it smell like puke in here? She asked. To me, it smelled more like feet, but everyone nodded yes anyway. That's what I thought, she said. Yo, Danger, Shearer called from the back of the locker room. Did you bring booze for after? Danger pulled a big bottle of champagne from her tote bag and said, if y'all don't fucking suck tonight, you have this to look forward to. Flux, whose hands were busy applying temporary star tattoos to Aggie's cheeks, smiles. Can you do me next? I asked, heart surging, and she nodded. As Flux pressed the cold washcloth to my cheekbone, Danger started her pep talk. Tonight, we're going to smash those bitches. Shira interrupted again. Danger, if we win, can we see your boobs? Without missing a beat, Danger said, if you win, I'll let you touch them. Everyone cheered, including me. Not long after we stood up, we filed onto the edge of the rink. The music started and the lights dimmed. An ex-skater wearing a beaver costume held up one end of a giant paper banner, and the M80's coach, Bruno Scars, held up the other end. Looks like Toots has gone even more theatrical, if that's possible, Shira mumbled. From our place on the periphery of the track, we watched the M80s crash through the paper banner and circle the track as a team. Dressed in red plaid jerseys and denim shorts, they wielded cardboard axes and saws. Toots had convinced everyone to change their name to fit the local lumberjack theme. The announcers dramatized each name by pulling out the vowels. Here we have number 13, Twig E. Smalls. And here comes number 32, Snoop Dogwood. Pine as Buck followed, then Birch Please, then Taryn, who for local season had changed her name to Sequoia Destroya. She was easy to spot in her green Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles helmet. She was grinning more broadly than I'd ever seen. When she passed by my team, she gave me 2 thumbs up. Stop watching those hooligans, Sue Beans instructed, and we all lined up. She handed us each a toy to throw into the audience. Mine was a big rubber ball that lit up when it bounced. Then it became clear we'd forgotten our strobe light, so Danger waved her hand in front of a flashlight instead. Storm and Norma was first on the track, as always. The announcers, Muck and Gil, fought to be heard over our theme song, Danger Zone, and the crowd started chanting something I couldn't quite make out. Knox went next, then Pegasus. In front of me, Corella Belleville squeezed a stuffed Dalmatian puppy. When it was her turn, she puffed at her chest and howled. Once she was sure everyone was watching, she ripped off the dog's head and threw the decapitated body to the side. Stuffing rained onto the track, big clumps of cloud-like hair. Then, for the first time, I heard John Spark called out over the speakers. I propelled myself forward, suddenly feeling like I was on stage. It was impossible to distinguish individual faces in the crowd. The lights were too bright. I'd felt sports-related adrenaline countless times before, but this was different. In the past, it had manifested in my body like the feeling of being chased. It had always felt like fear. But as I rounded the track, waving with both my hands, it felt like pure energy, positivity, warmth. That's the story. I just have one more short excerpt. It's just a page, but I have to share some background information. So the penultimate chapter in my memoir is called the Worldwide Roller Derby Convention. And I just want to give a shout out to Boulevard Magazine for publishing this piece for the first time in 2019. I'm just very grateful for that. So RollerCon is a 5-day conference for skaters in July every summer, and it takes place in none other than Las Vegas. It's ultimately wild, campy, hilarious, and not sober at all. There are themed bouts that take place over all 5 days. One of the first ones Kelly and I watched was Kinky versus Vanilla, and the first skater I saw doing jumping jacks had a huge strap-on affixed to her hips. That kind of set the tone, for the whole thing. So I think one thing that made RollerCon so special to us was that I was still recovering from a pretty bad injury, which you'll read about if you get the book. And I was still deciding whether or not I wanted to return to the sport. It was basically a little crisis that plagued me throughout our 5 days at RollerCon. I had bought the tickets before I broke my leg, and since I could walk short distances, I didn't want them to go to waste. So what I'm about to read is the very last scene from that chapter. It takes place during an event called the Black and Blue Ball, which of course is a nod to all the bruises you get when you play roller derby, but it's also the dress code. Only the colors black and blue are allowed. There's a lot of nakedness and even more dildos. Here I go for that. On the rooftop of the Worldwide Roller Derby Convention Center, there was a pool shaped like a uterus. In the moonlight, everyone I passed looked mysterious. A skater named Papa Crisis sauntered by me in a bowler hat and a tuxedo with the arms ripped off and 69 painted on the back. Someone whose fishnets stretched higher than her belly button stopped only at the bottoms of her breasts. A woman in a wheelchair with feathers in her hair. I watched as she entered the pool, and the feathers haloed like a headdress. Kelly stayed back in the lounge chair, just like the first day she took me to the community pool. As I climbed into the cervix of the uterus-shaped pool, she smiled up toward the stars. It was too foggy to see. She is moonbathing, I thought. I shouldn't interrupt her. But how desperately I wanted her to feel this water, warm and syrupy, so different from the harsh, cold pool where we first met in college. Here, there were no lanes and no starting blocks, just bodies. This pool, pulsing with sound on the rooftop of the Worldwide Roller Derby Convention, was the place where all the freaks and queers and misfits commuted to from their typical place in the margins. I felt at home. Jonah Spark, is that you? I thought to myself. I had never imagined I would find a little piece of queer heaven like this, especially back when Kelly and I were kissing under bridges, back when my mother was screaming, "Don't do this to me." Maybe I wasn't afraid of not belonging to Derby, to these beautiful outsiders in all their glory. Maybe I was afraid of not belonging to myself. I bounced on my good leg until I was in the water up to my waist, then turned around, put my injured leg down, and began walking back toward the edge again, the water getting shallower with every step. The pool was crowded, but no one knocked into me, one step after the other. A woman wearing only Calvin Klein boxers jumped into the pool. She was far enough away from me that I wasn't thrown off balance, but close enough that the water from her splash hit my face. When I opened my eyes again, everything was blurry, but I didn't feel afraid. I kept walking until I found the wall of the uterus pool and pulled myself out. The base was a pulse. There was a sudden shriek of laughter somewhere near me. I reached for a towel to rub the water from my eyes. Each time I blinked, I could see more clearly. 2 women in a Burger King crowns waiting near the ovaries. A dancing figure wearing a bedazzled ape mask. Kelly lounging in the moonlight, her hand reaching for mine. The grace at the center of the holy mess. Thank you. I'll be signing books if you want to buy any, and I just want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart. So thank you.
So as Gabe said, the signing will happen in the lobby. We also have sales out there, and there's a bar as well. So yeah, everyone have fun, and thank you so much for coming. Thanks for the blast.